face of the Lakers franchise. Lakers fans would rather see Davis stay healthy. Davis has missed 114 games over the past 3 seasons. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
On October 12, 2022, Nuri Martinez resigned from the Los Angeles City Council. This came a few days after the world heard Nuri and other elected members of the council speak disparagingly about black people, indigenous people, and others.
This white guy with this little black kid bouncing off the effing walls on the floor. There's nothing you can do.
And what participants believed was a private conversation. Racism, colorism, homophobia, and bigotry were exposed like never before. The effort to undermine the political influence of black fellow citizens was specifically targeted by these so-called leaders. Everyday people stormed the doors of City Hall demanding immediate resignations. Even the President of the United States called for resignations. On Thursday, October 12th, 5 to 7 p.m., KBLA Talk 1580 will host a day of dialogue on the anatomy of anti-black racism and bigotry in Los Angeles with an all-star panel of civic leaders. Don't miss this conversation. Thursday, October 12th, live from 5 to 7 p.m. with an encore performance from 7 to 9 p.m. only on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavissmileyshow.com. That's thetavissmileyshow.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, mammals' time on Earth is now half over. Mammals' time on Earth is now half over. Scientists believe that mammals are expected to go extinct in about 250 million years. But the reasons they've reached that conclusion are beyond fascinating. You don't want to miss hour 2 when science writer Carl Zimmer joins us, because it has an impact, of course, on you and me. In our third hour, 2 conversations. Up first, Brittany King Brock on the unique challenges women face being moms in the music industry and how they can be better positioned to face the unique challenges specific to being a caregiver while maintaining a career in the fast-paced music industry. That's on the top side of hour 3. On the B side of hour 3, October, as you know, is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we will have the first of a number of conversations this month about the unique challenges black women face when dealing with breast cancer. We'll be joined by Natasha Majay from Susan G. Komen on the backside of hour 3. But in this first hour, the season of strikes continues. 75,000 U.S. healthcare workers across the nation are striking right now at Kaiser Permanente over unfair labor practices. We will talk in this hour with the noted labor lawyer Bill Sokol and others and get their perspective on what the current climate of striking labor members means for the nation. But let's commence today's show talking with one of the strikers on the picket line here in Los Angeles specifically. Her name is Lakeisha Howes, and I am pleased to welcome Lakeisha to this program. Lakeisha, how are you today?
I'm good, Tavis. How are you?
If I complained, I'd be an ingrate. I'm doing well. I'm glad to be on with you. And thank you for the time. I know you're on the picket line, so I just take 5 or 7 minutes of your time and let you get back to doing what you do. But let me just start with a big question. Why are you, Lakeisha Howes, on the picket line?
Well, I'm on the picket line because, we have been short-staffed for so long. We've been short-staffed through the pandemic. And now that the pandemic is over, we continue to be short-staffed. I am a unit secretary in the emergency room, and I'm the first person that patients see when they come in, and people don't feel well when they come into the emergency room, and I can't help them as fast as I need to because I don't have the proper amount of staff in my department to help me do the work that, we need to do when we're serving our members when they come in.
Mm-hmm. Tell me a bit more about your backstory. Tell me how and why you got into the healthcare field in the first place.
Oh, well, first of all, my mom always talked to us and said, you should become a nurse. Nursing will always be, in demand. But I didn't make it quite there, but I did start out as a medical assistant. And I've been at Kaiser for 26 years. And actually at the Kaiser that I work at, I was born there. So I was like, how ironic to be working,
wow,
at the location that I was born at.
Yeah.
And I love what I do. So that's why I've been there for so long, that's why.
You mentioned the pandemic. Give me a sense, Lakeisha, of what it was like being in your particular facility during the pandemic. I know those were hairy times. Give me a sense of what it was like being in your space during the pandemic.
In the beginning, it started out slow. Nobody wanted to come. If they, wasn't an emergency for them, they would not come initially. Mm-hmm. Really those that were truly sick, who had symptoms of COVID, were there. And then it just increased in volume of patients getting sick. I know that in some areas that it was rocky. My particular facility wasn't as rocky until later. Mm-hmm. And then it was just overwhelming with patients, being sick and being admitted. And I, too, myself was a patient, during the pandemic. So, it was a rough time. It was a rough time, and I'm so glad that we have hopefully put that behind us. Yep.
So there are a couple of things that are bouncing in my head. Let me just tell you what they are. And when we come forward, I'm going to ask you to stay on the line with me just for a few more minutes. And when we come forward, I want to ask you a question about this, and we'll be joined by some others and round out this hour. But there are two things in my head. One is, and I'm talking specifically about why it is that you are short-staffed at Kaiser Permanente. And there are two things that are, I think, maybe both true. We'll talk about it when we come forward. One is that Kaiser, like everybody else, is trying to make up for all the money they say they lost during the pandemic, and there are a lot of cost-cutting measures in place. So they're cutting costs to make more money for them and their shareholders. That's one way to look at it. They're just cost-cutting, trying to save more money and make more money and being greedy. On the other hand, there were a whole lot of people in your profession after the pandemic who retired. They were overworked, they were underpaid, they were sick of it, they were tired of it. Like, to your point, many of them got sick themselves. Many of them died in this horrible pandemic. And so there's been an exodus of people from your particular industry. So I'm not sure if we're on the picket line born of an exodus in the industry, or born of Kaiser being greedy and wanting to make more money for themselves and their shareholders, or some combination of the two. I want to just get your take on that and what your union is saying specifically about why they've made a decision to strike. We'll be joined by some others. We'll be joined by one person actually on the bargaining team. One person on the bargaining team involved in this strike will join us. And, of course, we'll be joined by Bill Sokol, noted labor attorney. We'll spend the rest of this hour. 75,000 healthcare workers across the country on strike right now. And we've, don't forget the UAW is still out and others are still out. It's a season of strikes. It continues. Something is happening in the labor movement in this country. We'll talk more about it when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Escalade IQ. This the intro to the all-electric Cadillac, perfection like zoom. And on a full charge, you get 450 miles without the stop. Haiku. This is what I do. Daddy fat in the Lex since 92. Linked all the way back, panoramic roof. Come with 24-inch rim standard. Ooh, why? Shawty don't kill him. Cadillac diamond in the back, cold chillin'. And when I'm on attack, on the track is no ceiling. Sky's the limit. You hear me? You hear me? Straight drop, no parachutes. Lay lines like a longitude and latitude. Feel it, beloved, clearly we're hustling. Bustin', truckin'. Cadillac, Cadillac, Cadillac.
For more on the Escalade IQ, visit Cadillac.com.
Available late 2024. GM estimate 450-mile range on a full charge based on development testing and/or analytical projection. Consistent with SCHA 1634 revision 2017 MCT. Range subject to change prior to production. Annual rates may vary based on service factors, including ambiance temperature, terrain, battery age, and condition loading, and how you use and maintain your vehicle.
What's up? I'm Danelle Riley, FAMU alumni and creator of the HBCU Culture Shop. I am so proud of my new partnership with Black Beyond Measure and Target. They help me elevate community pride with my HBCU designs and continue to support Black creators and entrepreneurs with Target HBCU challenges, scholarship programs, and campus collaborations. Let's come together this homecoming season and beyond. Shop my brand and discover other Black-owned products at target.com/blackbeyondmeasure.
Walk to save lives. Join the American Heart Association's Los Angeles Heart and Stroke Walk, Sunday, October 22nd at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. Team up with friends and family and walk to end heart and stroke. Every step you take and every dollar raised will help save lives and make our community a healthier place for all. Learn more and sign up for free at heartwalkla.org. Sponsored by Optum, UCLA Health, Providence, Keck Medicine of USC, and Dignity Health.
For all of us, this generation and the next, there is simply no place in our lives for litter. And yet, it's everywhere we look. And unfortunately, it does belong to all of us. So, let's come together and create a litter-free, clean California, once and for all. Remember to properly dispose of your trash and recycling. Secure truckloads with tarps to keep debris from flying out. Clean out your car when you're at a gas station. Take pride in your community by organizing a cleanup event. Or join a cleanup event near you. Zero litter is the goal. Join us at cleanca.com. That's cleanca.com. Let's do it together. Brought to you by Caltrans. cleanca.com.
Who do you trust to get at the truth? Tavis Smiley. That's who. The conversation continues right now.
Lakeisha Howes is our guest. At the moment, we'll be joined by two others here momentarily. Georgette Bradford, who is on the national bargaining team in this Kaiser Permanente strike. We'll also be joined by noted labor lawyer Bill Sokol. Those persons coming up in just a moment here. But I wanted to just wrap my conversation with Lakeisha Howes, who's been at Kaiser for 26 years, working there in the emergency room, and we thank her for her service. Lakeisha, I mentioned moments ago, and we'll talk to Georgette and Bill about this. Georgette is probably better informed about this. But I'm just curious as to what your understanding is of the reasons why your union decided to go out on the picket line in the first place.
Well, Kaiser is not bargaining in good faith. You know, we went out on strike, because our contract ended September 30th, and they weren't coming to the table to discuss the things that we needed to discuss to make sure that we had a fair, contract.
Yeah. How long are you? You can't speak for all your colleagues, but how long are you, Lakeisha, prepared to be out there? How long are you prepared to stay there to get what you deserve?
Well, we have. I'm prepared to stay out on the strike line as long as possible, but what we're going to do is be out there till tomorrow, and then we go back. I'm scheduled to go back to work on Saturday. We all have to resume our regular schedules.
Sure.
But we did give our 10-day notice. To Kaiser. So if we have to, go back out again, we will. I will be prepared to go back out.
Yep. One last question, and I just want your honest answer, obviously. Do you feel some sort of way about being on the picket line? What you do really is life-saving. There are a lot of folk in this country who go out on strike, and their jobs are important. There is dignity in all work, make no question about that. And yet, for example, if you are an auto worker, anybody's life being lost because you're on the picket line. If you are a Hollywood writer or a Hollywood actor, anybody's life being lost because you're on the picket line. I'm just curious as to how you process being out in the picket line, knowing that what you do, in fact, while you're on the inside at least, saves people's lives.
Well, I know for certain that my department is a ghost town. Only no one that's a UHW, SEIU UHW employee is in my department. They are utilizing other staff members as AKA always known as scabs to try to fill in and do our job. But everybody that this contract matters to is out on the picket line, making our voices heard, hoping that Kaiser will listen to us.
There you go. I am a union member, not at Kaiser, not at SEIU, but I belong to a number of unions, obviously, as part of what I've done in my career. And so I always support those persons who are, those brothers and sisters who are in the union movement with me writ large in this country. So all the best to you and those on the picket line with you. And Lakeisha House, I thank you for your service, and I thank you for the time to talk to you. Have a great rest of the day, okay?
You too. Thank you, Tavis.
My great honor. Thank you, Lakeisha. Let me move now to Georgette Bradford, who is on the national bargaining team regarding this strike. In case you've just tuned in, we're talking about this season of strikes. It was a summer of strikes, and now we're in the fall. So I've changed my phrase from summer of strikes to season of strikes because there's so many American workers by the thousands, tens of thousands who are out on picket lines from California to the Carolinas. Something is happening, as I said earlier, in the labor movement. I kind of feel like Fannie Lou Hamer once said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, or I could quote that great philosopher Popeye, I done stood's all I can stands, and I can't stands no more. For whatever reason, people are out on these picket lines, and something again is brewing in the labor movement. I am pleased to be joined now once again by Georgette Bradford, who is on the national bargaining team regarding this strike. Ms. Bradford, how are you today?
I am great. Thank you for having me, Tavis.
It's my great honor to have you on. Thank you for your time. You heard me talking to one of the strikers here in Los Angeles. This program is heard across the nation, but I'm, of course, based in L.A., as you know, and I wanted to grab one of the workers as quickly as I could. So I'm glad that Lakeisha House could join us, given her 26 years at Kaiser. But tell me more broadly about what's at stake here and what's being discussed around or will be discussed around the bargaining table.
Definitely, and you probably heard some of this already from Lakeisha, but it bears to be repeated. This is about staffing. This is about burnout of our employees. This is about giving quality patient care. Kaiser has been a leader in the industry, the healthcare industry. People look up to Kaiser and the care that they give in the past. But Kaiser has slipped. Kaiser is slipping. Kaiser executives have let this short staffing crisis permeate throughout its facilities. I work in ultrasound. I'm an ultrasound technologist. I work at the Breast Imaging Center in Sacramento, California, and that is something that you don't want to let fall to the wayside, getting your exams, your mammograms, ultrasounds if something is found. And we are so backed up. Women can't get their mammograms on time. I just talked to one of our schedulers yesterday who was on the line with me, and she said she's talking to women who are booked out months to get their mammograms, and she's a breast cancer survivor. And it brought tears to her eyes to know that we are putting lives at risk for the simple fact that our Kaiser executives can't solve the short staffing crisis.
Yep. When you say Kaiser is slipping, I think I get it, but unpack that for me more expressly. The Kaiser, who, again, many people in the healthcare industry look up to and have for years, that they're slipping. What do you mean by they're slipping?
Slipping in that it used to be the focus was on patient care. The focus was on quality. But when you get in a situation where you have 75,000 of your workers in the streets telling folks that, look, we have a short staffing crisis at Kaiser. Our Kaiser executives are not listening to the cries of their own workers that do the frontline work every day. But please get more staff. We are burnt out. Just like you said, we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. We have coworkers that are getting injured because of the workload. We have coworkers that are retiring early because of the workload. And when you have people working with not enough bodies to do the work, the quality goes down, mistakes happen, and patients get delayed care. So when I say Kaiser is slipping, Kaiser is losing the prestige that they once had as being the pinnacle of quality healthcare.
Yep. Let me pose this to you, Georgette. I really thank you for your time in this conversation about this strike at Kaiser. 75,000 healthcare workers all across the nation striking at Kaiser facilities, and I hear all the horns and all the protesters in the background. That's a beautiful sound. I love that sort of ambient sound that makes this thing real. Real as rain, as a matter of fact. Let me ask you this. I'm trying to understand whether or not this staff shortage at Kaiser that's causing all these problems, like a domino effect that you mentioned a moment ago, is this happening in part because Kaiser is being greedy and trying to make more money for its shareholders by trying to operate with fewer workers, or is this because after the pandemic, as I've read a million places, a whole lot of folk exited your industry? They were just burnt out by the pandemic, and a lot of folk have just left that industry. Not just everyday workers, but we have a doctor shortage. There's a nurse shortage in this country. A lot of folk just sort of left that industry post-pandemic, if I can use that phrase. It seems that this virus isn't going anywhere, but there's been a mass exodus. So I'm just trying to get a sense of what your understanding is and what your belief system is with regard to why Kaiser is slipping, why Kaiser is short-staffed. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I think that is an excellent question, Tavis, because so many of our Kaiser executives have tried to use COVID and the pandemic as a scapegoat.
Okay.
Not only am I a member of the bargaining team, but I'm also a member of the SEIU-UHW Executive Committee, and I've been with Kaiser for 19 years. So I have seen the short staffing crisis rear its head well before the pandemic. Before the pandemic, we were having conversations with Kaiser leadership, the labor side, letting them know we knew for a fact that in the state of California, we were looking at a shortage of 500,000 healthcare workers in the next 4 to 5 years, and that was before the pandemic hit. So we were raising the alarms before the pandemic hit, and then when the pandemic hit, you had, like you said, the people leaving early, the retirement, unfortunately also our coworkers losing their lives to COVID, unfortunately. But our employer, Kaiser, knew we were in a shortage before the pandemic. They didn't even bother to upstaff during the pandemic, aside from reaching out to registry and travelers who really have no connection to the community or understand because they have no tie to the organization. So they knew we had a short staffing issue before the pandemic, and they're choosing to use it as an excuse. But even with that, Tavis, they still have not come to the table with concrete, multifaceted solutions to fix this short staffing crisis.
Let me ask you about leadership. And let me just say this, and this is known by some who followed my work. I happen to have known Bernard Tyson, the brother who was the CEO of Kaiser. I liked Bernard Tyson. I would like to think if Bernard were here as CEO, we might not be having these issues. I don't know about that. I never worked at Kaiser. But I knew Bernard Tyson well and worked with him on a number of things when he was living. That said, your critique of Kaiser leadership is pretty damning. And I'm wondering if you can tell me more about what they are saying or not saying. We'll talk in a moment before I lose you about process, what happens from here. I want to hear that part, what happens next. But talk to me about Kaiser leadership and your indictment of them in this present moment.
Sure. And I agree with your assertion is that if we did have, I believe personally, if we did have Mr. Tyson still with us, that we wouldn't be in the situation we are in today. And it is a stark comparison to tell you, and this is my fourth or fifth bargaining, Mr. Tyson showed his face at every bargaining. Mr. Adams only showed up via a Zoom call our first session. We have not seen him since. We have been bargaining since April, multitude of sessions, and the man has not had the decency or the respect for the people that work for his organization and care for his patients to come. And it really sets not only a bad tone, but it really shows Kaiser's employees what our worth really is to the so-called CEO of our organization. But as far as future negotiations or what's in store for us, as Lakeisha said, we're going to be out here until Saturday morning at 6 a.m. But we hope and pray that hearing the uproar not only from us, from our patients, from our community, from elected leaders that have stood up for us, and for other organizations like the Teamsters that have said that they will not cross our strike line, other locals that aren't even Kaiser affiliated that are supporting us, that they'll see, look, they need to get their mind right. They need to bargain in good faith, come to the table, and fix a solution. For me and all these coworkers on the line here, it's about the patients. We got into this industry to care for people. And so how can you care for people if you don't have the will to staff properly to give them the care that they deserve and the care that they pay a high premium for?
Yeah. Two more things, and I'll let you get back to that picket line that you were on right now. And I thank you for just stepping away for these minutes to give me a better understanding of what this is all about. So give me in the audience a sense, Georgette Bradford, of what the specific demands are. You are at the national bargaining table. What are the workers? What are the strikers demanding?
We are demanding, utmost and foremost, a solution to the short staffing crisis. That means what are the means for us to not only recruit new workforce, but to retain the ones we had. As you said, we have workers leaving the industry early, either from burnout, early retirement, or that they could go get a job in another industry for comparable pay with less risk. As you see places around the United States raising their minimum wage, yet we're here at Kaiser, organization that is a multi-billion-dollar organization, pinching pennies instead of doing what they can to make sure we're fully staffed.
And finally here, long term, I'm just curious as to your thoughts. You've been at this for a long time and doing your work quite well. This is your fourth or fifth bargaining, as you said, so you're not, this ain't your first rodeo. You ain't new to this process. No. And to your earlier point, you were having these conversations with Kaiser before the pandemic about the shortages that were to come. So here's my big closing question, my exit question. What are your thoughts, if you have any, Georgette Bradford, about long-term what can be done in this country, even beyond Kaiser, to deal with the shortages that we are having in the healthcare community when it comes to workers? That's a serious issue for all of us. When there are fewer nurses, when there are fewer doctors, when there are fewer Georgette Bradfords, when there are fewer Lakeisha Houses, we got a problem. So you have any thoughts about what happens, what we do long-term regarding the shortages in this important industry?
Yes, I think for the long term, especially within Kaiser Permanente, is be true to our labor management partnership. That was the birth and the inception of this company, but also not just in words, but in action. Because when you work in partnership with the people at the front line that do the work, that is how you come up with solutions to bring in new people. But for the long term across the country, it's about making sure that you have comparable pay so people can have a living wage to do the work that they need to do, making ability for people to upscale, to educate themselves, to advance in their career, making sure that we have proper safety provisions. And I'm talking across industries, not just in healthcare. And let it not be lost to a lot of people. The healthcare workers that we represent and our coalition represents are predominantly women and people of color. So that speaks to the community and who do we really want to uplift? Yeah. Who do we really want to make sure has a safety net? And when I talk about safety net, I'm not talking about a handout. I'm talking about the resources and the support to uplift their lives, uplift their communities' lives, uplift their families' lives. Because not only am I a Kaiser employee, I'm a patient, my family's a patient, and my community are patients at Kaiser Permanente.
And you can see why SEIU has Georgette Bradford at the bargaining table. I ain't mad at her. She's a bad sister. I'd sit next to her at any bargaining table. Georgette Bradford, all the best to you on the picket line. I hope you all get what you want and deserve, more importantly, down the road. Thank you for your time. I deeply appreciate you. All the best to you.
Thank you.
My great honor. When we come forward, we'll talk to a noted labor attorney, Bill Sokol, and cover some other issues I want to get at in this hour. You're listening, and I'm glad about it, to Tavis Smiley.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley. Tavis Smiley. Ranked number 45 on the Heavy 100 list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful they saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. It's now day 21 of the United Auto Workers strike. It comes as 400 more Ford workers in Michigan are being told not to report to work today. Last week, UAW President Shawn Fain said Ford and GM were refusing to make any meaningful progress at the table. Meanwhile, a study from the Anderson Economic Group found the U.S. economy has lost almost $4 billion since the start of the strike. LSU safety Greg Brooks Jr. has been diagnosed with a rare form of brain cancer. Brooks, who is African American, underwent surgery last month to remove a tumor from his brain. He has medulloblastoma. The disease affects between 350 to 500 people in the United States every year and is most commonly found in children. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Seeing that busy drive in Pasadena, slow and go in Pico Rivera, Whittier, and Southgate. It's a wreck trying to clear from a center traffic lane. That's 710 north at Imperial Highway. Center lane blocked with a crash. As you approach that 105, things are busy. Pico Rivera, Whittier have a stalled vehicle on the 605 south at Washington Boulevard, Slauson. That's in the center lane as well and caused it a very busy drive from Beverly Boulevard. Stop and go through Pasadena. Earlier wreck cleared on the 210 west at Sierra Madre, but looks like we're busy here from the 605. Sherman Oaks, the 405 south approaching Burbank Boulevard. Center lane blocked with a crash. Coming away from the Van Nuys area as far back as Nordoff, things are no-go.
Hey, if you're thinking of getting the latest iPhone, you need to stop and check out the amazing wireless offer from Boost Infinite. For more, just pick up your phone and dial pound 250 and say Boost Infinite. That's pound 250 and Boost Infinite. You'll have the option to receive a one-time auto-dialed text message from this station.
Lowe's knows fall is the perfect time for outdoor projects. Right now, you can keep your yard looking its best and save. Take care of leaves with leaf blowers starting at just $89.98. Lowe's knows home improvement. While supplies last, see store for details.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers will play Arizona in the National League Divisional Playoffs. Arizona swept Milwaukee yesterday in the best-of-3 wildcard round. The Dodgers and Arizona kick off their best-of-5 series on Saturday at Dodger Stadium. The Rams saw something at Wednesday's practice they hadn't seen in a while. Wide receiver Cooper Kupp caught some passes from quarterback Matthew Stafford. It was Kupp's first full practice since he went down with a hamstring injury in August. Barring any complications, Kupp could be in the lineup for Sunday's home game against Philadelphia. LeBron James said Anthony Davis is now the face of the Lakers franchise. Lakers fans would rather see Davis stay healthy. Davis has missed 114 games over the past 3 seasons. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
No young person should ever have to worry about having a safe place to sleep at night, or whether anyone cares about them.
But the reality is, 1 in 10 young adults will experience a form of homelessness this year.
For over 50 years, Covenant House has been helping youth in crisis and giving them the support and tools they need to succeed in life. To learn more, go to covenanthouse.org today. Thank you for caring.
Hey, everything okay?
Yes, I'm fine.
Honey. Hey, I'm here for you. Tell me about school today.
When kids can't find the right words, music can help them sound it out. Talk to the kids in your life about their emotional well-being. Find tools and resources at sounditouttogether.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Pivotal Ventures.
At Susan G. Komen, we believe that ending breast cancer needs all of us working together. Because if you've just been diagnosed and don't know where to turn, we've got you. If you can't afford the treatment you need, we've got you. And if you are driven to honor the loved one you've just lost, we have a place for you here. Because of you, we're supporting those who need help today while tirelessly searching for tomorrow's cures. Visit Komen.org and be a part of our Susan G. Komen community today.
As veterans, we're no strangers to helping others.
That's what we were taught, service before self.
But we do have one question for the veterans listening.
When was the last time you reached out for help?
If you or someone you know needs resources, whether it's for stress, finances, employment, or mental health, don't wait. Reach out.
Find more information at va.gov/reach. That's va.gov/reach.
Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.
Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Indeed you are, and I am grateful to have you tuned in to our program today. Continuing our conversation now in this first hour about the strike at Kaiser Permanente. You've probably been reading about it. Over 75,000 U.S. healthcare workers striking right now at Kaiser Permanente all across the nation over unfair labor practices. We were just talking with two of those strikers, Georgette Bradford, who's on the national bargaining team, and Lakeisha Howes, who's one of the workers at Kaiser, been there 26 years. She's on the picket line as well. So we heard directly from persons involved in this about why they're on strike, and essentially it's about staffing shortfalls. And there are a number of reasons for that. Their view is that Kaiser is just being a little bit greedy. And they've known for years that these shortages were in the offing. There's been an exodus of workers in the healthcare industry, and they're trying to squeeze more money out for their shareholders. And so those who work at Kaiser have had enough of being understaffed, and so they've taken to the picket line to raise their voices. As I said earlier, weeks ago was calling it a summer of strikes. It's now a season of strikes. The seasons have changed, and labor workers are still on strike on various picket lines all across this country, from actors to auto workers to healthcare workers and beyond. Something, once again, is happening in the labor movement, and I, for one, am happy to see it. That said, let me now bring into this conversation noted labor attorney Bill Sokol, who I'm honored to have on this program. Bill, how are you today, sir?
Oh, feeling very good, very excited about what's happening, Tavis. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
It's a pleasure to have you on. You sound like me. You're very excited to see what's happening right about now. Tell me why you, Bill Sokol, are so excited about what you're witnessing.
Absolutely. I've been a union lawyer for 4 decades, Tavis. I've never seen anything like what's happening right now. I think what's happening goes beyond the labor movement. I think it's entire generations, younger generations, rising up angry across the country. They found out during COVID who the truly essential workers are, who really matters, and now they're saying, we're not going to be part-time workers. We're not going to work for minimum wage while corporate greed steals all the income that's coming in as a result of the whole. I mean, all the corporations in America made a lot of money off of the pandemic. Yeah. Let's understand, the auto industry, $20 to $30 billion a year every year since 2015. A place like Kaiser playing poor mouth. The truth of the matter is they kept collecting the insurance premiums throughout, but they weren't delivering services because nobody would go to a hospital. Corporate greed is basically stealing the American dream from young Americans, and they get that. You know, what they want is a living wage so they can, what's the American dream? Been an illusion for a lot, but the idea is we should be able to own a home, own a car, send our kids to college, maybe even take a vacation. And instead we're being told you have to work for minimum wage. This is happening all over the place. I mean, look, the automakers, they're making cars and being told you're going to do it for $18 an hour. I went down to the Panda Express in my own neighborhood. They'll pay $20 an hour, and somebody's being told we won't even pay you that to build autos. Not going to be put up with anymore. No. Remember, Sam, forgive me for going on this.
No, go.
You can tell. I mean, I think it's really exciting.
Yes.
When you look at what's happened in Hollywood, what was the major issue? We're not going to be turned into gig workers who have occasional work and can't even afford mortgages from month to month. What's happening with the auto workers? We're not going to have a second tier of younger workers who make half as much as the workers right next to us. And hey, auto industry, if you can pay your CEOs $20 to $30 million a year, every year, why can't you pay us a decent living wage so we can have a decent, American dream life? Yeah. We even have, Tavis, I mean, it's wild. We have 34,000 graduate student workers on strike against University of California. Right now, yesterday at Cal State universities, 20,000 student workers are now organizing into a union. It's all about greed at the top, these administrative corporate leaders saying, we need it all, we got to have it all, We're going to keep it all for ourselves and our shareholders. And you folks, hey, you just do the work and keep your mouth shut. Not going to happen.
Yeah.
Youth of America rising up. There you have it.
I want to get you. I appreciate that. Didn't want to interrupt you on a roll, and you were laying it out in a beautiful way. And so I don't. Far be it from me to interrupt that kind of brilliance, that kind of eloquence. That said, let me just ask a personal question, and we'll come back to these issues. One hears your passion in what you do. You've been doing it for 40 plus years, as you mentioned. That's a long time to be in love and service to everyday people who make this country run. I'm just curious as to why and how you became a labor lawyer.
Hey, I had no choice. The apple falls right close to the tree.
Yeah.
My parents were blue collar workers, Cleveland, Ohio, and it was a great industrial power. My father went to work every day in a machine shop. When I was a kid, Tavis, I thought strikes were parties because I'd get to see my dad. I'd go to his shop. They'd cook me hot dogs, over a fire. I got a balloon. I got to carry signs. And I didn't have a choice. This is what it's all about. And what I'm always doing, why do I still feel this passion? I'm serving my parents, Tavis. It was the fact that my parents were union members and activists that gave me the scholarships and the support and the loans so that I could get through college and get a law degree. So it's payback time, right? And you pay it forward to the next generations. That's what it's all about for all of us.
No.
And Tavis, I'm going to embarrass you, okay? Because I think what's also happening right now, it's important to recognize that half of the labor movement, the organized labor movement, now people of color. Half of the labor movement is now women. And what's happening is they are carrying out the mission of Martin Luther King, which you described in your fabulous book about his last year, where he began to understand that race and class are joint issues. They intersect, and you can't deal with racism without dealing with class equality, and you can't deal with class equality without dealing with racism. And frankly, Tavis, everybody should go back and read your book because that's what tells it, lays it out. And for me, that's been a marvelous, it's just kind of a guiding light as the work I try to do.
No, that's kind of you. I appreciate that. You are serving your parents, and I'm doing the best to serve my parents. And for me, writing that book, Death of a King, was about my love for Dr. King and for his service and his sacrifice and the struggle that he endured. And so for me, it was a labor of love to write that book. And of all the books I've written, it's probably my favorite, and certainly sold remarkably well as a New York Times bestselling text. But that notwithstanding, just the honor to write about my hero. I've said many times on this program that I personally regard Dr. King as the greatest American this country's ever produced. That's my own assessment. I could debate you on that, but my view is that King is the greatest American this country's ever produced. And so for me, writing that book was in service to his legacy. And that legacy for me is really at the epicenter of what these strikes are about. If one were to ask me, Bill, what do you think King's legacy is about? It's very simple. Justice for all, service to others, and a love that liberates people. That's King's philosophy. Justice to all, service to others, and a love that liberates people. As you know, though, King famously said that there is dignity in all work. That was his line, that there is dignity in all work. And so to your brilliant point, as King was getting near the end of his life, of course, he didn't know that was coming. In some ways he did. He knew that there was a bullet out there with his name on it. But the closer he got to his final days, the more he realized, as you just laid out so beautifully, this link between classism and racism. And to your point, these workers nowadays are more women, they're more people of color, and that may be at the heart of what's driving this season of strikes, that everyday people, women and people of color have had enough of this. And so Dr. King, again, used to always say, Bill, as you probably know, that when you straighten up your back, you're going somewhere, because a person can only ride your back when it's bent. But when you straighten up, you're going somewhere. And these laborers are all across the country are straightening up. They're tired of folk riding their backs. And I am as thrilled, maybe not as thrilled as you are, because you've done it for 40 years. And the audience can hear again your enthusiasm. But I'm thrilled as well to see labor finally straightening up their backs and trying to hold management accountable. A great deal more to unpack with this brilliant labor attorney, Bill Sokol, who you're listening to right now on Tavis Smiley.
Seeking the truth. Speaking the truth. This is the Tavis Smiley Show.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
JP Morgan Chase is building on the investments in California and around the country to help close the racial wealth gap and build a more equitable future. As part of JP Morgan Chase commitment, they are taking action to help improve financial wealth and access to banking in the Black community, helping more people open low-cost checking and savings accounts, hosting community seminars with supporting Black-led institutions by building awareness about financial investments, hiring community managers, and opening community center branches like Crenshaw, Inglewood, in downtown LA. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Get the tools to help reach your financial goals. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity.
Only 1 in 5 people with autism are employed, despite many having the skill set and desire to work.
Maybe it's because employers don't know what kind of jobs they can do. Like, what about a programmer?
That's a job for someone with autism.
How about a healthcare worker?
Yep, that is too. People with autism can do a lot of different jobs, but often get overlooked due to outdated stigmas. Introducing WIN by Autism Speaks. We help businesses lead the way in inclusive hiring.
What about a ranch hand?
To learn more, go to autismspeaks.org/win.
Hello?
Man, where are you? I thought you were coming.
I can't. I'm in bed with the flu.
The flu? Whoa. Grandma's about to crowd surf. Man, I'll call you back.
Don't get stuck at home with the flu. A flu shot is safe, effective, and you can get it at the same time as your COVID-19 vaccine. A flu shot is the best way to prevent the flu and its potentially serious complications. Don't get flu FOMO. Learn more at getmyflushot.org.
Brought to you by the AMA, CDC, and the Ad Council.
Let's get back to more of Tavis Smiley right now.
So, Bill Soko, let me just get your temperature on what the impact is this season of strikes that we are in, this current climate of striking labor members. What does that mean for the U.S., for the economy, politically, socially, culturally? You tell me.
I think what the big lesson here is that has just begun to be taught to the American people is that there's no room for the kind of corporate greed, billionaire control of our politics and our culture and our economy anymore. People are rising up angry against that, and they're not going to allow it to continue. I want to make a really simple point, Tavis, if I may.
Sure.
I think strikes are always caused by bad management. And what these strikes are about in a certain fundamental way is there's not room for greedy, bad managers. And I use as my primary example, UPS did not have a strike. 350,000 Teamsters were ready to shut it down, and they understood we've got to share the profits with our people. It's not a matter of profits or people. It's a matter of people create the profits, and UPS was smart enough. They had a win-win. That's what intelligent management does. What's happening, though, for example, in the auto industry? What people are learning, I believe, is that bad management creates a bad industry. I mean, it's been lousy ever since, the Japanese cars in the 70s ate their lunch, right? When Honda and Datsun, they came, ate their lunch. Then we went through bailouts and bankruptcies. And now, how could it possibly be that we have some upstart, a South African kid genius who comes to town and he buys an old General Motors plant in Fremont, California, retools it, and it builds more electric vehicles than any other plant in America? How could they let that happen? They're the ones who have forced these workers out on strike, even though they're making enormous profits. And when they, what people are learning is it really is about making the 1% accountable.
Mm-hmm.
That's really the larger impact of it. Younger people are simply saying, I'm not giving up my dream because 1%, why does one guy have to have $200 billion? Where did this all start? Amazon, right? Chris Small is back there on Long Island, right? Saying to Jeff Bezos.
Yep.
$40 billion. You don't need $40 billion in one guy's pocket while the rest of us are working part-time and can't even pay our bills.
Yep.
That's really the bigger dimension of what's going on. It's speaking to that, what Sean Fain, the head of UAW, calls them the billionaire class, the 1% who want it all for themselves, right? And it's not going to work, and millions of people are telling them it's not going to work, and they're just going to keep rising up across the country.
When we come forward now, remaining moments with Bill Sokol, I want to get Bill to unpack what he defines as bad management. I can assume some of what he's going to say, but I love his frame. And my friend Connie Rice always says, get your frame right, Tavis, get your frame right. You got to be in the right frame. And this is the right frame. He makes it very clear. Bad management is what leads to strikes. If you've got good management, like they had at UPS, you mentioned a moment ago, they were able to avoid that strike. Good management. But I want him to define what bad management is so we know it when we see it. And when we see it, we can call it out. Maybe that will prevent this season of strikes from continuing. We shall see. More with Bill Sokol when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on!
What's up, party people? It's your favorite MC's favorite rapper, MC Light here. And we're celebrating 50 years of hip-hop, authentically powered by Cadillac. And we're going to take it way back to where it started. It was only fitting that hip-hop began with teenagers at a back-to-school jam in the rec room of a South Bronx apartment complex by an 18-year-old brother. By the way, I'm also sure he had a Cadillac parked outside. He noticed the energy on the dance floor when he switched between two turntables, extending the beats, repeating the breaks, and never losing the rhythms. And that was the birth of hip-hop. And from that moment, it took off.
For more on how Cadillac is celebrating hip-hop's 50th, visit Cadillac.com/audacity.
KBLA Talk 1580 stands for Unity and Healing. African Focus Incorporated is a nonprofit organization based in California that focuses on the growth and well-being of Africans all around the world. Their mission is to promote the well-being of people of African descent through knowledge and appreciation of one another by building a bridge of love and understanding. African Focus Incorporated strives for cultural, educational, and economic growth. They're the organization behind the African Family Induction Ceremony, African Goodwill Awards, African Focus Trailblazer Tours, African Dance Competition, and Showcase Los Angeles, Family Day, Good News Windows Microfinance Project, and more. To volunteer, travel with African Focus, or to attend one of their community building events, please call 310-676-7730. That's 310-676-7300. Or visit AfricanFocus.org. This is a diaspora-wide community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Mom's early Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard to take.
And when I left the oven on, we decided together that it was time to see a doctor and make a plan.
Early detection gave us more time to seek out information and support as a family.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. For more information, visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
My ride smells just right, just right, just right, just right. Y'all gotta try that Febreze car. Just right, just right, just right, just right. La 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 la. With up to 40 days of consistency, all over Febreze car clips right on your vent. You know my car's my happy place. Keep that smile on my face when it smells just right, just right, just right. Yeah, breathe happy Febreze. La 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 la.
He's rooting for everybody black. Everybody black. More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
Bill Sokol, you made a powerful point that what leads to these strikes in this season of strikes preceded by this summer of strikes, is bad management. And how do you define bad management?
I'll tell you, you gave me a moment to think about it, and I think we can boil it down, Tavis, to they put profits before people, they put money before mankind. I'm going to use Kaiser because you were talking about Kaiser. Bernard Tyson, with whom I worked, absolutely, he cared about the people. He understood that Kaiser is a great healthcare system. It's one of the best healthcare systems in America. It delivers great healthcare. And he understood it was because the people out there, the people who are on strike right now, are the ones who deliver the healthcare. They're the ones who make Kaiser great. Bernard was there all the way. He identified with the people, not with the profits. He had to make all those spreadsheets work, but it was always by working with the people, being at their table. This time around, I think the fairest thing to say about Greg Adams, the new CEO, is I think he's really more comfortable with accountants and spreadsheets than he is with the people who do the work. And so he gets focused on the numbers. And, you know, I know how those C-suites work, right? They're sitting there looking at spreadsheets and numbers, and that just, it's all they can see, and they don't see the human beings that make Kaiser great. The difference between bad management, good management, you either get it, that people are what make a company great, or you think it's all about money. And if you think you can't think about both of them at the same time, you're doomed to failure. You're going to be a lousy manager. That's Hollywood, right? They just fundamentally misperceived what was going on. They still haven't figured it out with the actors. That's the story with the auto. I mean, can you imagine somebody like Mary Ibarra, the head of GM? She makes $29 million a year, and she's telling a guy who makes $18 an hour, I can't afford to let you make what the guy right next to you makes, $32 an hour. That's bad management right there.
Let me ask you, you noted this earlier, and it's no secret, obviously, that executive pay in the C-suites has grown exponentially over the years, and that's not anywhere near true for everyday workers, and that's why they're on picket lines in all these various industries that you just underscored a moment ago. Do you think we reached a point where this outrageous CEO pay has hit a ceiling, or does this continue unabated?
That is the great question of our time, Tavis. That's the question that these workers out on the line are asking. They're the ones who are saying, are you really going to try to keep all that money for yourself? We won't let you do it. In 1980, CEOs made about 40 to 1, the average worker on their lines. Today, 340 to 1. And workers are saying, the question you're asking is the question every worker on that line is asking. Do you really think I'm going to work for 1/343rd of what you're making and bust my butt for you so that you can make $29 million a year? Think again.
It's been a great hour. I've immensely enjoyed this. I hate to see these workers have to go on the picket line to engender some sort of fundamental fairness from their wealthy employers. But you got to do what you got to do, and I support all of these workers who are trying to hold these C-suite executives accountable. I thank Lakeisha House for coming on this program. I thank Georgette Bradford. And I certainly thank Bill Sokol. As you can hear, if you ever at a bargaining table, you want to be seated next to Georgette Bradford. And if you ever need a labor lawyer, you want Bill Sokol to represent you. Bill, I thank you for your work and your witness, man. Good to have you on this program. All the best to you.
Hey, and Tavis, I want to thank you for the great work you've been doing. I want to say just keep on keeping on. You're doing invaluable work. He who owns the free press can have a free press, right?
There you go.
I'm so glad you're there at KBLA making it happen.
You are kind.
Take care, brother.
You are kind, brother. Appreciate you very much. A lot of love. All right, let's do hour 2 when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. It's now day 21 of the United Auto Workers strike. It comes as 400 more Ford workers in Michigan are being told not to report to work today. Last week, UAW